Hello everybody, and welcome to another King's War Battle Report. I'm Visibly Riley, and today we have a classic matchup in the Dwarves versus Orcs. As is common on this channel, this battle was fought at 20-50 points, and we played a modified version of the scavenge scenario, so instead of having 3 objective tokens that shoot out loot, we just have 3 loot markers. As a small disclaimer before this begins, this channel isn't exactly known for its painting acumen or even minimum model count, and this battle definitely dials that up a notch. So if that's something that you don't think you'd like, maybe just join us next week, where hopefully that won't be the same. Moving on. Here we see my opponent's list. Starting off, he has 4 Horde of Axe, followed by 2 Troops of Morax, a Regiment of Morax with a Caterpillar Potion, 2 Flaggers, 2 God Speakers, both with Veil of Shadows, 2 War Drums, Grumtongue, and Grumtongue's Legion. And again, I'm missing about 30 points in this list, but this is just a rough approximation. And this is the first time I've actually played against Orcs, so I'm not exactly sure what to say. I'm not a huge fan of the list, but I think that's just sort of the way that Orcs are. Moving forward, here is my Dwarf army, starting with a Horde of Ironclad with Throwing Mastiff and Brew of Strength. Then I have 2 regiments of Earth Elementals, one has the Healing Brew, 2 Organ Guns, an ASB with the Loot, 2 Stone Priests, both with Martyr's Prayer, one with Inspiring Talisman, Hernius Hunter, and then 3 regiments of Hernius' Rangers. In reality, it's only 1, but the formation doesn't really let you spend the points, so just do it this way. And then we top it off with 2 Steel Behemoths. As a small aside, Steel Behemoths are absolutely ridiculous. I'm sorry, but I'm sure most of you know this isn't anything new, but I look at this in the Ratkin point of view, where the death engines are 210 points, and with Vile Sorcery, and we're nerfed to be -1 death when they take it. I think that's fair. While the Steel Behemoth just gained a Breath 15, Piercing 1 for 0 points. That's just too much. But anyway, I digress. The idea of my army here is that I can bunch up around objectives. I'm very tough to take out, and then I can dominate the midfield with my shooting, and really just whittle things down before I get into combat. Because while all my units can definitely take a punch, they don't deliver much of one, but they can finish a unit off, so that's sort of the idea, and we'll see how that works out. Here you see the end of deployment. From left to right, starting with the Dwarves, we have my 2 Organ Guns, one is slightly out of frame. Then we have the little robots, those are my Earth Elementals right now, while I work on making some actual models for them. But the leftmost one, that is the Healing Brew Earth Elementals. Behind them is my first Steel Behemoth, the lizard model. Again, not what I plan to use for the second Steel Behemoth, but it's what I have right now. To the right of that, we have my Horde of Ironclad. Behind them is are the first 3 characters. We have the 2 Stone Priests and the ASB in the middle. The rightmost Stone Priest is the one with the Inspiring Talisman. Then to the right of that, we have the next regiment of Earth Elementals. Behind them, the next Steel Behemoth. And to the right of that, the 3 regiments of Hernius' Hunter, with Hernius himself being between the 2 rightmost units. The idea here is that ruined tower on the left, none of his hordes can actually fit through the gap between that and the table edge, so I don't really have to worry, as the best he could do was put down his regiment and or 2 troops, maybe some characters, and thread that needle if he wants. So after we put down the regiment of Morax into the woods, I decided it was kind of a non-issue, put the 2 Organ Guns there, and decided to use that tower essentially as my board edge. So I'm going for those 2 center objectives, and we'll see how that goes. With the Orc side of the deployment, we can start from left to right. We have the 2 hordes of Axe, and behind the frontmost Horde of Axe, we have the War Drum, and then the God Speaker and Flagger. So the models for this, if it's a Horde, it's Axe. If it's the Legion, it's Grumtongue's Legion, and then the troops and regiment are Morax. Now, the other models, the Snotwing models that he's using, those are War Drum. The guys with bows on foot, the just random guy, those are God Speakers. The 2 Choppa guys who are just not on a regiment tray, those are his Flaggers, and then he has 1 random painted Orc as Grumtongue. So to the right of this, we have his regiment of Morax. To the right of that, the next Horde of Axe. To the right of that, the 2 troops of Morax. And to the right of that, the 2 remaining hordes of Axe, and behind them, the War Drum and the God Speaker and Grumtongue. I'm not sure where the second Flagger is. I can't really see him right now, but he's over by the right 2 most Axe Hordes, so I guess that's where he is. I'm not sure about my opponent's deployment here. Again, I think he should have probably just sacrificed that forest and put his Morax with the Caterpillar over on the left to deal with that side. And his 2 troops of Morax, I think that that's a pretty poor use of them. Like, they fit there, but that's not a great idea for deployment. If you just run them behind, or maybe on a deep flank or something like that, I think they'd be more useful and at least not impeding your units from being able to wheel or move. Lastly, he's put Grumtung's Legion right in the center, and that bit of terrain that we have with the little, light gray rock outcropping, that's just another piece of rep terrain, and he has no Pathfinder there except for the 1 regiment of Morax, so I don't know if Grumtung should be there. I think that they should be on the right to deal with those hills. But anyway, that's what he did. That's my thought. Here we see the end of turn 1 for the Orcs. The die picture is actually the next picture. I messed up the order. And we can see at the bottom right, I have vanguarded forward with Hernius and his Rangers. Maybe Hernius didn't. I'm not sure he has Vanguard, so I probably didn't. But anyway, so they've gone forward. And the idea here is to stay just out of 20 between the enemy and me to make it so he can't charge me for the first 2 turns, because I want to shoot. After the Orcs do what Orcs do, and they just sort of run forward. Everything that can goes as fast as it can, staying out of my charge, which is pretty easy as I'm playing Dwarves. Lastly, he puts his Veil of Shadows up. 1 is on the Regiment of Morax with the Caterpillar Potion on the left there, and then on the right, I think it's on the leading Axe Horde, but I'm not exactly sure. It might be on Grumtung's. So, Legion, not Grumtung himself. Moving forward, yep, that's the die picture, turn 1. And here's Dwarf turn 1. So I pretty much just move forward, maintaining my battle line. I'm out of charge for the most part, except for my Earth Elementals on the left. I move them into charge of the Morax Regiment, because I don't think he can take me in 1 round. And even if he does, I can get a charge with my Ironclad and with my Steel Behemoth. And if he overruns, I'll shoot him with Organ Guns and the Steel Behemoth. It's just not a worrying thing. So I kind of want him to piecemeal into me, rather than, get a unified whole. So, and if he fails that, which I think is pretty likely, I get a flank with my Ironclad and a front with Earth Elementals. So it's just sort of win-win in my mind. Otherwise, yeah, I maintain my battle line. The Earth Elementals in the center frame, those are pretty poorly placed. I have this idea for a battle line when I play this army, but since I was playing against essentially 0 guns, as he only has 2 fireballs, I think that these would actually be better suited either on my far left or far right flank to help out with combat. Right now, they're just sort of gumming up my line, and anyway, so they're stuck behind the Steel Behemoth. Not great. As for shooting, I decided to put all my organ gun shots into his leftmost horde. You can sort of see it peeking out the board for it, at least, through the window of that ruined tower. And I do, a couple wounds. And, the rightmost, I decide to take my Rangers, and I just shoot into that troop, the rightmost troop of axes, or more axes, that he's pushed forward, just because that should be an easy target to take out. I think, in hindsight, I probably should have gone for the War Drummer, but I think that the leftmost Ranger unit isn't 50% on the hill, so I didn't have that many shots, and Hernius couldn't move fast enough to get his shots, so just sort of messy deployment by me. Hernius should have been more to the left, I think. Anyway, so I put them all into there, I delete that 1 regiment, and I get a couple of pot shots. I think I do 1 wound to the rightmost. I shoot both the Veil of Shadows targets, because why not? And I do like 1 and 2 wounds. Not, just some pit damage. Turn 2. Here is Orc turn 2. On the right, you see this charge, and I thought I was out, but I didn't realize, and this, is my ignorance, that Grumtung gives you +1 speed when you charge within 6 inches of him. And so these Orcs that I thought were speed 5 were essentially speed 6 on this charge, and so, yeah, he gets into my Rangers on the right, so pretty big mistake by me. And otherwise, yep, just showing off that charge. He sends his Morax regiment with the Caterpillar Potion right into my Earth Elementals on the right there, on the left there. So you can also see the bit of pit damage. I did 1 to the Axe Horde on the right, and 2 to the Morax regiment on the left. Excuse me. So yeah, he sends these guys in to fight the Earth Elementals. Again, I'm just not worried about it, because he can't overrun that far. I'm going to get a flank charge if he does. It's just bad. Anyway, moving forward. Yeah, my opponent rolls so poorly here, with 25 attacks that hit on a 4 and wound on a 3, I believe. He does 4 damage to the Rangers. It's just really unfortunate. Haha, see what I did there. But anyway, so he does 4 damage to me and doesn't get the waiver, so oof, needed a 10. And over here, he does 4 damage again to the Earth Elementals and doesn't roll the 10 to kill him, so we move forward. Dwarf turn 2, yeah, the pictures are a little loose on this one. I put all my shooting, most of my Steel Behemoth and I think one of the Ranger regiments, and maybe Hernias, into the War Drum on the right, and I removed that pretty easily, do like 11-ish wounds to it. And otherwise my organ guns shoot into the leftmost horde of Axe again that were over by the tower. And then the other Steel Behemoth, the Lizard Behemoth, moves forward to get a cheeky little shot around my Ironclad into this regiment of Axe, putting 5 wounds on them. So that's pretty good. Otherwise showing off the organ guns, shooting on the left, I think I put them on 8 wounds. No waiver, no nothing. Nothing here got wavered by shooting. But otherwise, I get a charge with my Ironclad and Earth Elementals into his Morax regiment on the left-hand side, right by these organ guns. The Ironclad get into the flank. They are hindered because they roll into the rough terrain, but it's still 50 attacks on a 5+, and then 9 on a 4+. So that's pretty bad for him. And yes, this is after combat. They erase them pretty easily and reform. So my Ironclad, it might look like maybe it's a flank charge with that axe, but I measured it. It is not. They're just barely in the front. And the Earth Elementals have decided to pursue forward and hitting the back of my own unit just to move them forward. And over here, yeah, I decided to put 2 regiments of Rangers into his Axe horde, mostly because, one regiment isn't going to do anything, and 2, if that leftmost regiment stayed on the hill, they were more than 50% on. And so if my opponent chooses to do a charge here, that back Axe horde can actually see me if I was height 3. So he can combo charge, as this horde of axes would be more to the left, and they would just slide down and easily get this combo charge off. So instead, I just do a double charge to get a, maybe I spike my dice and so on and so forth. Also, I just didn't think 12 crossbows were going to do all that much. And yeah, I just charge in, do 10 damage, or 9 damage. They already had 1 on them. I do 9 damage, and I don't roll the dice enough. I think it's, I don't roll the dice enough. I don't roll the 10 I needed to wave at them. So, moving forward. And yeah, here's the end of the turn shot. This will actually give context for what I just said. On the right, you can see the Rangers sort of gathering around. The leftmost Rangers had line of sight on the War Drum, so they didn't move at all just to get some more bow shots. The Blimp has moved forward to both do his breath attack onto his War Drum and to block Grumtongue's Legion, because even if they charge me, they are going to have a hindered charge. I'm def 6, and then I'm an 18-20. I'm just not worried about it, and I have 2 Martyr's Prayer in the back. Also on my turn, my Earth Elementals on the left there drank their healing potion, healing 2, and then my little Stone Priest there with the 2 next to him, he heals the other 2 off with Martyr's Prayer. So right now, the only wounds I have on my units is that 1 regiment of Hernias' Rangers with 4 wounds, and then, of course, my Stone Priest with 2. So yeah, that's the end of Dwarf turn 2. Moving on to turn 3. Turn 3, the Axe Horde, like I said before, he can't actually get the back axes into anything important here. So instead he just sort of moves them around to get them ready for another charge, and sends the Axe Horde that took 10 wounds, or took 9 wounds, that has 10 on them, into my rightmost regiment, the Wounded Regiment. I think that's a pretty good idea, obviously. Like, if you can't get the double charges, why spread the wounds around? And yep, Grumtongue's Legion takes the hindered charge into the Hindenburg. And here we see the Axe Horde also get a hindered charge into my Ironclad. I'm not 100% sure on this idea. I think that if he had just moved forward and allowed me to take a hindered charge into him, and maybe thrown some fireballs out, I think that might have been a little bit better. Although the Earth Elementals are there, as long as he stays at a range of getting charged by one of the Steel Behemoths, I think that would have been a better idea. Not a good idea, but a better one. So, anyway, on his left side, you can't quite see it with the tower in the way, but his Horde of Axe do pick up that loot token. So, over here, yeah, my opponent puts a further 10 wounds onto me, so actually rolling it this time, doing pretty well, and then double ones the break check, so really unfortunate for him. So no break there. And here, that little 2 die at the bottom right, that's actually supposed to be on the Blimp, who is also taking a bit of a tumble, which is why his die, and the Blimp isn't there right now. So, yeah, it took 6 wounds from Gromtung's Legion, but he doesn't boxcar the check, so they back off, and then his Horde of Axe end up doing 2 wounds to my Ironclad Horde, and don't boxcar that either. I think his Godspeaker there must have fired a fireball into my Earth Elementals. He does one damage, which isn't even enough for a check, so we move forward. And here is Dwarf turn 3. So starting on the right, I send both the regiments of Rangers back into that Horde of Axe. I don't think that if you double one it, you should be able to charge. Like, it's fine to have that variance where you stay on the board, but you should just not be able to affect anything. That's just my opinion, though. Anyway, so I go in there, because it's too big of a tempo swing. And towards the center, I send the Blimp, the Steel Behemoth, and the 3rd Regiment of Rangers into Gromtung's Legion. I probably should have tried to get a combo charge with my Earth Elementals, but I was trying to do something fancy, and then I kind of forgot about it halfway, so this is what ended up happening. Not the best idea. And over on the left, I end up getting my Ironclad and Steel Behemoth into his Horde of Axe, and I don't think they're long for the world. Actually, if we roll to the center again with the Earth Elementals, I think this might have been a better idea, because if I had sent all 3 of those units in, I send 2 vulnerable units and the Blimp. In hindsight, I probably should have just sent the Blimp in and then held the Rangers back and the Earth Elementals, but anyway, that's hindsight. Moving forward, I end up, just showing up this charge, showing up that charge, and this charge. And yes, the Rangers easily destroy that Horde of Axe. I think I do a further 10 wounds, or 9-ish wounds, something like that. I roll forward with my wounded Rangers, because I need to block those axes from being able to charge my non-wounded Rangers. And then otherwise, my other Rangers back up a little bit, because why not? Over here, you'll notice that the die is again gone off of the Blimp, and that's because I cast Martyr's Prayer on him and removed all 6 wounds, so the Limps. I end up doing 17 wounds to Gromtung's Legion, so pretty good, but not enough to actually break them or waver them. And here, the Steel Behemoth plus non-hindered Ironclad just blow right through that Horde of Axe with 5 wounds on him already. And as a bit of a side note, my Steel Behemoths only rolled a 5 for their random attacks, so they just had 25 the entire game. Kind of nice that way. And turn 4 begins. Here we see Orc turn 4, and my opponent really needs something to happen here. So he could still be in this game. He just, really needs to start spiking some dice. On the right, he sends his Horde of Axe into my Wounded Rangers. I think that's a good call. Secondly, he sends his Flagger into the other regiment of Rangers, the backmost ones. And I, again, think that's a great call. That's a solid move, because if he does his 1 wound, which he has Crushing Strength, he stops me from shooting, and I can't combo charge into the Horde of Axes in case he double ones the other Ranger regiment again. So I can't combo my attacks up. And I think that's just a great idea to think about when you're playing games, is stopping any sort of combo charge, regardless of how unlikely it is, especially when you're on the back foot like this, and you have so many extra characters. So, in the center, he sends Gromtung's Legion into the Blimp, into the Steel Behemoth, and I think that this is a pretty big mistake by my opponent. I'm not sure why he didn't just charge the Rangers, because the Blimp is very unlikely to take enough damage to die or even be wavered, and even if it is, it's headstrong. So just take the Rangers, get the points where you can get them, and then worry about what the Blimp's going to do later. I think that's a pretty big error. And he also could have probably sent a Godspeaker into me with Gromtung to turn off my breath attack anyway. So yeah, I think that's a big error. But oh no, he couldn't. The Rangers are there. Yeah, so on the left, he sends a flagger into the horde of Ironclad, and again, this is a pretty big mistake. I think my opponent was getting a little tilted at this point, because why ever do this? All that does is allow me to have a countercharge, while otherwise I would have nothing, because I can't see anything. So, the left, you can see kind of that little bit of MDF backing up. That is his last horde of axes backing up around the tower to try to put the organ guns both on cover to shoot at me, or shoot at them. And here, yep, just showing off that charge, and this charge, not the best plan. Yeah, the axes easily kill where their brothers fail. These guys blow right through my regiment of rangers, so there's that. And, oh, let's roll him back. The flagger here, actually, when he gets into my rangers, he does hit, and I think he wounds, so to turn off my shooting. But, yeah, he does 6 wounds with Grumtongue's Legion. Doesn't do anything. And it looks like, no, he didn't wound my rangers, so they can do whatever they want. Oh, that's right, yeah, he charges in and hits, and then on a 3+ to wound, he rolls a 2. So pretty unfortunate, to very unfortunate, depending on your thoughts. And this is Dwarf turn 4. I send Hernius on the right into a God Speaker because why not? It might tempt him to charge it with the axes, which would be a pretty big mistake, but, you know, force mistakes when you can. And if I do blow through, I can actually get into Grumtongue, and so this is just a slightly better plan than shooting, as I think I have that covered. My Rangers on the right don't charge into the ASB, or don't countercharge him, because I actually want to kill that troop of Morax in the back there that have a loot counter instead. Always keep your eye on the ball. So, in the center, I charge in with the Steel Behemoth, the Blimp, and the Rangers, and this time the Earth Elementals do join in to get rid of Grumtongue's Legion. And the Steel Behemoth, with a loot token from killing the Axe Horde from before, move forward to just get a breath attack onto that troop of Moraxes in the back with a loot counter. On the leftmost, I countercharge into his ASB, or his flagger, and I'm just sitting here wondering why even do that, as I could overrun into his God Speaker and just wreck this whole flank. So, not the best plan in my opinion. To talk about what happens here, I end up getting the organ guns fire into his horde of axe on the left, sort of out of frame here, and finally get the kill on them. So that's very good. He has only 1 loot counter now on that troop, and then my Rangers and Steel Behemoths shoot into that troop and remove that loot counter as well. So he's currently sitting on 0. The Rangers, I keep saying that. The center Rangers, with the Steel Behemoth, Blimp, and the Earth Elementals, do finish off Grumtongue's Legion, actually pretty easily. And on the right there with Hernius, Hernius ends up going to the God Speaker and doing like 1 or 2 wounds, maybe more, maybe 3. He has 3 attacks. And I get the waiver, but they of course have Fury, so that's not going to do a whole lot. I didn't tell this, but Hernius did take 2 wounds from a fireball from that God Speaker in the previous turn, but he didn't roll the 10 he needed. He rolled a 9, so he was not hindered. He was not wavered. Turn 5. So, yeah, things are looking pretty bad for the Orcs now, and I think they're just sort of running out the clock. So he turns the... I guess this is just showing the end of turn 5, sorry. So this is my opponent. You can see his hand reaching for that war drum, and he's decided again to charge into the Ironclad with his heroes. I just don't get this. It's just throwing points away. I get getting flustered and, wondering about what to do in a game, but honestly, just, always play to your outs, right? So try to make it as close as possible. But anyway, the God Speaker on the right that's fighting Hernius countercharges there, and then my opponent does do another clever trick with his flagger on the right there. He just turns him around, charges into my Rangers that are on the hill, and also leaves the axes to charge into my Rangers on the right there. I think this is a pretty good idea, as it probably eliminates 1 regiment of Rangers, and then also if he slaps 1 wound onto that regiment, the other regiment of Rangers, he can stop them from shooting and force a countercharge and all that. So I think that's pretty solid. And yep, this is just showing off something. Not sure what. This is showing off his charge. And yeah, the the War Drummer and God Speaker going here. Whatever, I guess. Oh, I'm sorry. That was Gruntung charging into the Earth Elementals, and yeah, I guess this is an okay idea. I don't really agree with this either, because he could roll pretty well. Gruntung has 5 attacks and Crushing 2, I think. So he could, get through these Earth Elementals. It's doable, but I think that's kind of a waste of his time right now, and he probably should have gone into the Steel Behemoth, or just moved over, or charged Hernius or something. Just try to get those points where you can, and turn off my shooting elsewhere. Here we can see, the Morax slide down after they charge into my Rangers, and this Flagger charged into the side of them. This is after combat. On the right, he does 7 wounds to my Rangers with his Axe Horde, which is not enough to get anything with what he rolled. I think he rolls out 5, so not enough to waver them either. He does an extra wound to Hernius, but again doesn't waver him with his Godspeaker. He does 1 wound to my regiment of Rangers there, so that's pretty good with his Flagger. Turns off their shooting. And then otherwise, I think he does 2 wounds to my Earth Elementals with Grumtung, which is, he could boxcar it, I guess. He does not. And he does 1 wound, I believe, to the Ironclad, and again does not boxcar it there. Moving forward, this is Dwarf turn 5, so I just turn my blimps to shoot at Grumtung. Just the idea is that the Earth Elementals only have 9 attacks, I might as well just shoot. I send my ASB, because this Flagger has been doing pretty interesting things, into his Flagger, because why not? And my Rangers charge the remaining Axe Horde in the flank, while the other regiment of Rangers countercharge to the front. So that's 36 elite attacks. They hit on a 4 and wound on a 4, I think, because they're Def 5. So it's okay. Hernius goes back into the Godspeaker in the back there, and I send my Horde of Ironclad into his Godspeaker, thinking that with 25 attacks, with Crushing 1, I can just blow right through that, and then into the War Drum, kill that. So, because of individuals, and that's the idea. In the bottom left, sort of obviously off screen, my 2 organ guns decide to move, as there's nothing left to shoot at them, or to shoot at on the left flank, so they move a little bit and reposition. I easily blow right through the Godspeaker, then blow right through the War Drum, and then turn back towards the center, because there's a loot counter all the way in the left, but the Dwarfs are too slow to get there in 2 turns. So why not just consolidate back to the center? My ASB, who's taken a bit of a nap here, does hit and wound the Flagger and waver him, so that's pretty cool, in my opinion. That guy's really top-heavy. And here I end up doing, I believe, 11 wounds to the Horde of Axe, which is about on average there. I don't get the waver, which, needing that 9 to get it, don't get it, so that's okay. I think that Hernius, in retrospect, shouldn't have charged the Godspeaker, and probably should have just charged into this Horde of Axe, because with 1 or 2 extra wounds, I think because he has 3 attacks that hit on a 3, and then he wounds on a 3 as well. So 1 or 2 extra wounds here, I think, makes all the difference. While that Godspeaker is just essentially irrelevant right now. Just doesn't matter. And if it did, I could have just turned one of the Steel Behemoths to blow it off the table. So that's a bit of a mistake by me. Speaking of the Steel Behemoths, they ended up doing 4 wounds to Grumtung, which is, that's alright. It's right in that average range. I don't get the waiver, so he'll be able to do whatever he wants. And I healed the 2 wounds off of my Earth Elementals with Martyr's Prayer. Just showing off that again. And turn 6. There aren't that many... Oh, what happened with this picture? There aren't that many Orcs left, and there aren't that many pictures of this turn for the Orcs. But, his Horde of Axes decide to charge into my already wounded regiment. They do a further 7 wounds. They don't double 1 this time, and he kills them and turns to face my army. The Flagger goes back into the ASB using Fury, so I think he hits him but does not wound him, because that's just not what he does. And Gruntung goes lastly back into the Earth Elementals, I think, and does 1 or 2 wounds there, but not enough to really sink anything. And here is the end of Dwarf turn 6, because, I didn't want to take any more pictures. There wasn't that much going on. On the right, the only interesting thing that I think happened right here is that on the right, I decided to not charge the Horde of Axe, because I have more guns than I have attacks, because if we roll back to the weird upside down picture, my blimp is facing the wrong direction to charge the Axe Horde. So there's no reason to charge. Instead, I just take the shots. They already have 11 on them. You know, I've got 15 Pierce 1 Breath. I've got 12 Elite Bows, and then I've got Hernius himself for 3 plus Pierce 3 shots. So feeling pretty good about that. And the center with Grumtongue, I do something that I should have done the last turn, but I just misuse my Earth Elementals pretty much this whole game. But I had the Earth Elementals slide over a little bit. The 2 Organ Guns decide to shoot into Grumtongue, getting 1 or 2 wounds along with my Steel Behemoth, the Lizard Steel Behemoth. And then I just cast Surge. I just need the 1 inch to get it. Both my guys could Surge that unit, so I have 16 dice that I need to roll 1 4+, and I get the charge off. And the idea was just to, get a few more wounds of shooting, and then, do 1 wound in combat. So that the concept of I just sort of take over the midfield and then finish you in combat, right? So I want to shoot mostly and then fight. Classic combined arms. And yeah, at the end of this, Grumtongue goes down to the Earth Elementals, and the Horde of Axe gets shot. So the only remaining Orc is that Flagger, and we roll for turn 7, and I roll 1. So the game ends there. Over here, yeah, we can see my opponent took a bit of a funny picture of the units that died and in what order they died. So I thought that was a nice little bit. And the Dwarves win this with 2 loot tokens to 0, and I lost 400-ish points. Right, so either 380 or 400. I think you don't count formations when they die, so it would be 380 that way, because I only lost the 2 regiments of Rangers, one of whom could have been Arrhenius' Rangers. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this, and if you have any comments or suggestions, feel free to leave them in the comments. I'll see you next time.